The massive starship drifted silently through the void, its once gleaming hull now scarred by centuries of battle. Inside the cargo bay, something ancient stirred. Zarathek the Eternal had not moved from her resting place in over 300 years, but today was different. Today she could feel death approaching like a cold shadow. The dragon's scales, once brilliant emerald, had dulled to a sickly gray. Each breath came harder than the last. Around her, the various alien species that made up the Galactic Council whispered in hushed tones. Representatives from the crystalline Vorthak, the gas-based Nebulan Collective, and dozens of other races had gathered to witness what they believed would be the end of an era. "The Ancient One grows weak," murmured Ambassador Kellix, his insectoid mandibles clicking nervously. "Without her protection, the Rim colonies will fall to the Devourers within cycles." The Devourers were an unstoppable force of mechanical horror that had been consuming entire solar systems for the past millennium. Only Zarathek's immense psychic abilities had held them back from the core worlds. Now, with her fading, panic spread through the assembled delegates like wildfire. High Counselor Thresh, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline shell, floated closer to the dragon's massive form. "Great Zarathek, surely there must be something we can do. Some technology, some medical procedure." The dragon's ancient eyes opened slowly, each one the size of a shuttle viewport. When she spoke, her voice resonated through the minds of every being present. "My time draws to an end, as all times must. But fear not for yourselves alone. My greatest concern is for my child." A collective gasp echoed through the chamber. In all the centuries of Zarathek's service to the galaxy, none had known she had offspring. The dragon's massive head turned toward a smaller alcove where a crystalline egg, no larger than a human torso, pulsed with inner light. "She will hatch soon," Zarathek continued, her mental voice growing weaker. "But unlike her ancestors, she will be born into a universe where our kind are nearly extinct. She will need guidance, protection, teaching. I have failed to find any among you capable of providing what she requires." The assembled aliens exchanged worried glances. Each species had offered their best scholars, warriors, and technicians, but Zarathek had rejected them all. The ancient dragon required something specific for her hatchling, though none could understand what. Commander Vex of the Corvani military stepped forward, his 4 arms spread in a gesture of respect. "Ancient One, our archives contain the knowledge of 10,000 civilizations. Our warriors have defended the galaxy for eons. What more could your offspring possibly need?" Zarathek's eyes dimmed further. "She will need someone who understands the marriage of flesh and steel, of organic intuition and mechanical precision. Your peoples have grown too specialized, too narrow in your thinking. You see technology and biology as separate things, but my child will need to understand them as one." The dragon's breathing grew more labored. "There is a species, young and foolish, that the Council has largely ignored. They call themselves humans. They possess a unique perspective on the universe, one that might serve my daughter well, but they are far from here, in a backwater system you consider beneath notice." Counselor Thresh's energy form flickered with confusion. "Humans? Those primitive tool users? Great One, surely you cannot be serious. They have barely achieved interstellar flight. Their technology is crude at best." "Their technology may be simple," Zarathek replied, "but their approach to problems is unlike any other species I have encountered. They do not see barriers between disciplines. A human mechanic is also part philosopher, part artist, part warrior when the need arises. They adapt, they improvise, they refuse to accept that anything is impossible." The alien delegates murmured among themselves. The idea seemed preposterous. Humans were considered barely civilized by galactic standards. They had been contacted only recently and had shown little interest in joining the greater community of species. Most lived their entire lives without ever leaving their home system. Ambassador Kellix's compound eyes glittered with skepticism. Even if what you say about humans is true, how would we even locate one suitable for such a momentous task? And why would they agree to help? Zarathek's massive form shuddered as another wave of weakness passed through her. I have been watching them through the quantum networks. There is one, a male called Jake Martinez. He works in the asteroid mining fields of their outer system. He has shown remarkable ability to merge organic insight with mechanical expertise. More importantly, he has shown kindness to creatures others would consider beneath notice. The dragon's mental voice grew urgent. Time grows short. My daughter will hatch within days of my passing. If she awakens alone without guidance, her power may consume her. Worse, the devourers will sense her vulnerability and strike while she is still learning to control her abilities. The chamber fell silent, except for the hum of the starship's systems. Finally, High Counselor Thresh spoke. If this is truly your wish, Ancient One, we will attempt to locate this human. But the journey to their system will take time, and you have said your daughter will hatch soon after. After I am gone, Zarathek finished. Yes, it will be a race against time, but I sense something about this Jake Martinez. He will not abandon a creature in need, no matter how strange or frightening she might seem to him. Send your fastest ship. Offer him whatever compensation he requires. Commander Vex stepped forward again. What if he refuses? What if this human lacks the courage to face such responsibility? For the first time in hours, something like amusement flickered in Zarathek's ancient eyes. Then you do not understand humans very well, Commander. They have a saying, somebody has to do it. When faced with a problem that desperately needs solving, especially one involving the protection of the innocent, humans have a remarkable tendency to volunteer for impossible tasks. The dragon's breathing became increasingly shallow. Go now. Take the fastest vessel you have and bring Jake Martinez here. Tell him the truth about what you need from him. Humans respect honesty, even when the truth is terrifying. And Commander Vex, when you find him, remember that humans judge others not by their appearance or their power, but by their actions. As the alien delegates hurried to organize the rescue mission, Zarathek turned her fading attention to the crystalline egg in the nearby alcove. Her daughter's life force pulsed stronger with each passing hour, but soon she would emerge into a universe far more dangerous than the one Zarathek had known in her youth. Sleep a little longer, my child, the ancient dragon whispered to the egg. Help is coming, though it may not arrive in the form any of us expect. The great starship changed course, heading toward the distant Sol system at maximum speed. Behind them, space sensors detected the first signs of Devourer scout ships moving toward the Rim colonies. The race against time had begun, and the fate of an entire galaxy might soon rest in the hands of a human mechanic who had no idea his life was about to change forever. Jake Martinez wiped the grease from his hands and stepped back to admire his work. The mining robot's arm moved smoothly now, its damaged servos replaced with parts he had fabricated himself. Around him, Asteroid Station Bravo hummed with activity as dozens of automated systems extracted precious metals from the floating rocks of the outer solar system. "Nice work, Jake," called out Maria Santos, the station's supervisor. "That's the third bot you've brought back from the dead this week. Corporate's going to love the efficiency reports." Jake grinned and shrugged. "They're not dead, just confused. Sometimes machines need someone to listen to what they're really trying to tell you." He patted the robot's chassis affectionately. This old girl just needed her motivation circuits realigned. She was trying to work through pain, poor thing. Maria shook her head with amusement. Jake had always talked about machines as if they were alive, but his success rate spoke for itself. Where other mechanics followed manual procedures, Jake seemed to understand machines on an instinctive level. He could diagnose problems that stumped diagnostic computers and fix issues that should have required complete replacements. The peaceful atmosphere was shattered by alarms blaring throughout the station. Emergency lights bathed everything in red as the automated voice announced, "Unknown vessels approaching. All personnel to emergency stations." Jake and Maria rushed to the observation deck, where a sight that defied belief waited for them. 3 massive alien ships hung in space near the station, their hulls gleaming with technologies that made human engineering look like stone tools. The largest vessel had to be kilometers long, its surface covered in patterns that seemed to shift when viewed directly. "Holy Mother of—" Maria breathed, her face pale with shock. "Jake, are you seeing this?" Before Jake could answer, the station's communication system crackled to life with voices speaking in languages no human had ever heard. Then, with obvious effort, one of the voices switched to heavily accented English. "We seek the human-designated Jake Martinez. This is Commander Vex of the Corvani Starfleet. We come with urgent request for assistance." Jake felt his legs go weak. "That's impossible. How do they even know my name?" The voice continued, formal and clearly struggling with human language concepts. "Jake Martinez, we offer no harm to your station or people. We require your immediate presence aboard our vessel. Matter of galactic importance." Maria grabbed Jake's arm. "You can't seriously be thinking of going with them. This could be some kind of trap or worse." But Jake was already moving toward the communications panel. Something in the alien's voice spoke of desperate urgency, the kind he had heard before when dealing with emergency repairs where lives hung in the balance. "This is Jake Martinez," he said into the microphone. "What kind of assistance are you talking about?" The response came immediately. "We cannot explain over open channels. Ancient Zarathek is dying. Her offspring will hatch soon and require guardian. You have been chosen." Jake exchanged looks with Maria. The words made no sense, but the desperation behind them was unmistakable. "I'm a mechanic, not a babysitter. Why would you need me for something like that?" "Please, Jake Martinez. Time grows short. We will explain everything if you come aboard. Your species' help could save millions of lives." The words hit Jake like a physical blow. Millions of lives. He had always been the type of person who could not ignore a cry for help, whether it came from a broken machine or an injured animal. Now, somehow, aliens from across the galaxy were asking for his help with something that could affect countless beings. "Jake, no," Maria said, reading his expression. "This is insane. You don't know anything about these creatures or what they really want." "But if they're telling the truth," Jake replied quietly, "then something is in trouble, something that needs help. I've never walked away from that before." An hour later, Jake found himself aboard an alien transport shuttle, wearing a hastily assembled environmental suit and carrying a toolkit that suddenly seemed laughably primitive. The shuttle's interior defied human understanding of physics, with surfaces that seemed to bend space itself and control systems that responded to thought rather than touch. Commander Vex, a 4-armed humanoid with chitinous armor-like skin, regarded Jake with obvious skepticism. "I still do not understand Zarathek's choice," the alien commander said through a translation device. "Your technology is primitive. Your knowledge limited. How can you possibly provide what the hatchling will need?" "Maybe you could start by explaining what exactly you need from me," Jake replied, trying to keep his voice steady despite his racing heart. The journey to the main fleet took several hours, during which various alien representatives attempted to explain the situation. Jake learned about Zarathek, the ancient dragon who had protected the galaxy for centuries. He learned about the Devourers, mechanical entities that consumed entire worlds. Most importantly, he learned about the hatchling that would soon emerge into a universe far more dangerous than any young creature should face. When they finally boarded the massive flagship, Jake was escorted through corridors that seemed designed for beings much larger than humans. The scale of everything was overwhelming, but what struck him most was the sense of barely controlled panic among the alien crew members. They brought him to the vast cargo bay where Zarathek lay dying. Jake's first sight of the ancient dragon left him speechless. She was magnificent and terrible at the same time, her massive form radiating power even in her weakened state. But what caught Jake's attention immediately was not the dragon herself, but the way the various machines around her hummed with distress. "The life support systems are fighting themselves," Jake said suddenly, causing the assembled alien dignitaries to turn in surprise. "What do you mean?" asked Ambassador Kellix. Jake moved closer to the nearest monitoring station, his trained ear picking up subtle variations in the mechanical sounds. "Listen to the harmonic frequencies. The machines are trying to adapt to keep her comfortable, but they're designed for your species, not for dragons. They're working against each other instead of together." Without waiting for permission, Jake began examining the various medical devices surrounding Zarathek. To the amazement of the watching aliens, he started making adjustments, realigning sensors and modifying control algorithms with tools from his simple toolkit. "What is he doing?" whispered High Counselor Thresh. The answer came from Zarathek herself, her ancient mind touching Jake's consciousness for the first time. The sensation was overwhelming, like standing in the path of a gentle but unstoppable river of thought and emotion. "He is listening." The dragon's mental voice filled the chamber. "He hears what the machines are trying to tell him, and he responds with understanding rather than force. This is why you needed him." Jake stumbled as the psychic contact ended, but he continued working. Within minutes, the cacophony of competing systems resolved into a harmonious chorus. Zarathek's breathing eased noticeably. "Impossible," muttered Commander Vex. "Our best technicians could not achieve such integration." "Your technicians are excellent," Jake replied, wiping sweat from his forehead. "But they approach each system separately. You have to listen to what they're all trying to accomplish together." Zarathek's massive eyes focused on Jake with new intensity. "You begin to understand. My daughter will be born with abilities that bridge the gap between organic intuition and mechanical precision. She will need someone who can teach her to see these as one thing, not two." The dragon's form shuddered with weakness. "I have little time left, Jake Martinez. Will you accept the responsibility I offer? Will you help my child learn to use her gifts wisely?" Jake looked around at the assembled aliens, then back at the magnificent dying dragon. In the nearby alcove, he could see the crystalline egg pulsing with increasing intensity. Something was about to be born, something that would be alone in the universe without guidance. "What exactly would I need to do?" he asked. "Be her teacher, her protector, her friend," Zarathek replied. "Help her understand that power without wisdom is destruction, but wisdom without the courage to act is meaningless. Show her the human way of looking at problems, the refusal to accept that anything is truly impossible." Jake thought of all the machines he had saved, all the problems he had solved by refusing to give up. He thought of the millions of lives hanging in the balance and the young creature about to enter a hostile universe. "Somebody has to do it," he said quietly, echoing the human saying Zarathek had mentioned to the council. The dragon's mental voice carried profound relief. "Then it is settled. When my daughter hatches, Jake Martinez will be there to guide her first steps into the galaxy. But be warned, young human. The Devourers will sense her awakening, and they will come. You will need to help her learn quickly, for all our sakes." As if summoned by her words, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. On the tactical displays, enemy signatures appeared at the edge of the system, moving fast and with obvious hostile intent. The Devourers had found them. The crystalline egg cracked with a sound like breaking starlight, just as the first Devourer ships entered weapon range. Jake knelt beside it, his heart pounding as he watched something impossible emerge from within. The hatchling dragon was no larger than a house cat, her scales shifting between silver and deep blue like liquid metal. But her eyes held an intelligence that seemed older than worlds. "Hello, little one," Jake whispered, extending his hand slowly. The baby dragon sniffed his fingers, then chirped with a sound that somehow harmonized with the ship's engines. Behind them, Zarathek's breathing grew fainter. She accepts you," the ancient dragon managed to say. "Good. Now you must flee. Take her far from here while I make my final stand." "We're not leaving you," Jake said firmly, cradling the hatchling against his chest. The baby dragon purred, her tiny claws gripping his uniform. "You must," Zarathek insisted. "I have enough strength left for one last battle. But she needs time to grow, to learn. That is more important than one old dragon's life." Commander Vex burst into the chamber, his forearms gesturing frantically. "The Devourers have broken through our outer defenses. 20 ships, maybe more. We need to evacuate immediately." Jake looked down at the baby dragon in his arms. She was watching him with those ancient eyes, and somehow he knew she understood everything. A plan began forming in his mind, the kind of crazy idea that only worked because nobody expected it. "How long would it take to modify the ship's power systems?" he asked suddenly. "Modify them how?" Ambassador Kellex demanded. "This is not the time for repairs." "Not repairs," Jake said, his mind racing. "Integration. I've seen how this little one's biology works. She's like a living circuit designed to interface with technology on a quantum level. If I could connect her to the ship's systems—" "Absolutely not." High Counselor Thresh's energy form flared with alarm. "She's just a hatchling. The power flow would destroy her." But Zarathek's eyes had brightened with understanding. "No, he is right. My people were meant to be partners with our technology, not masters of it. She could control the ship's systems better than any computer, but only if someone shows her how." Jake was already moving, carrying the hatchling toward the ship's main computer core. "I need access to the primary data channels and a direct interface port." "This is madness," muttered Commander Vex, but he led Jake to the central processing chamber anyway. The ship shuddered as Devourer weapons began impacting the hull. Through the observation ports, Jake could see the enemy vessels approaching like a swarm of mechanical death. They were sleek and black, their surfaces absorbing light instead of reflecting it. Where they passed, space itself seemed to wither. Jake knelt beside the computer core and began opening access panels with tools that were laughably primitive compared to alien technology. But sometimes the simple approach was the right one. The hatchling watched with fascination as he worked, her small head tilting from side to side. "Okay, sweetheart," Jake said gently to the baby dragon. "I'm going to show you something amazing. But I need you to trust me. And I need you to be very careful. Can you do that?" The hatchling chirped and placed one tiny paw on the exposed circuitry. Immediately, holographic displays throughout the chamber lit up with patterns Jake had never seen before. The ship's systems began responding faster, more efficiently, as if they had been waiting their entire existence for this connection. "Incredible," breathed Ambassador Kellex. "She's not just accessing the computer, she's becoming one with it." Jake guided the hatchling's explorations carefully, showing her how to interpret sensor data, how to understand the ship's weapons and defensive systems. The baby dragon learned with frightening speed, her consciousness expanding to encompass the entire vessel within minutes. "Now comes the hard part," Jake murmured. "Can you feel the other ships out there? The bad ones trying to hurt us?" The hatchling's response was not words, but pure emotion transmitted through the ship's communications system. Every being aboard felt her sudden understanding of the threat, followed by determination that burned like a small star. The ship's weapons fired with precision that astounded the crew, Instead of the broad, wasteful energy discharges typical of their technology, each shot was perfectly calibrated, finding weak points in Devourer armor that computers had never been able to detect. Enemy ships began exploding in brilliant flashes, but there were too many of them. For every Devourer destroyed, 2 more appeared to take its place. "Zarathek is falling back," Commander Vex reported grimly. "Her psychic barriers are failing. We have minutes before they break through." Jake felt the hatchling's distress through their connection. She wanted to help her mother, but she was still so small, so new to her powers. Then Jake had an idea that was either brilliant or completely insane. "Little one, you're connected to every system on this ship, right? Including the communication array?" The hatchling chirped affirmatively. "Good. I need you to do something that's never been done before. I need you to connect with every ship in the human fleet back home. All of them, all at once." The assembled aliens stared at Jake as if he had lost his mind. "The humans have barely 50 combat vessels," Commander Vex said. "Even if they could somehow arrive in time, they would be no match for the Devourers." "You're thinking about this wrong," Jake replied, his hands flying over the control interfaces as he helped the hatchling establish the connections. "Humans don't fight fair. We adapt, we improvise, and we really, really hate bullies." Across the vast distance to Earth's solar system, every human spaceship suddenly found their communication systems activating without command. Freighters, patrol craft, research vessels, even the old museum ships in Earth orbit, all received the same message simultaneously. The message came not in words but in pure emotional transmission. They felt the dying dragon's desperate love for her child. They felt the hatchling's terror and confusion. They felt the approaching darkness of the Devourers, and the threat they represented not just to humanity, but to all life in the galaxy. And then, with typical human stubbornness, they began responding. Captain Sarah Chen of the freight hauler New Horizon was the first to speak into the impossible connection. "This is the human merchant fleet. We're en route. ETA is 6 hours. "Negative," came another voice, this one from Admiral Rodriguez aboard the Earth defense ship Indomitable. "Military vessels are launching now. We'll be there in 4 hours. More voices joined the chorus. Research ships diverted from their missions. Mining vessels abandoned their operations. Even civilian pleasure craft began plotting courses toward the battle zone, their crews downloading weapon schematics and modification procedures from hastily shared databases. "They cannot possibly arrive in time," Ambassador Kellix protested. "You still don't understand humans," Jake said with a grin. "We're not coming to fight fair, we're coming to cheat." Through the hatchling's enhanced senses, Jake watched as something unprecedented happened. Human ships began appearing throughout the system, not through faster-than-light travel, but by using every trick, shortcut, and dangerous maneuver their crews could imagine. They came through unstable wormholes, gravity slingshots around neutron stars, and hyperspace jumps that should have been impossible. The Devourers found themselves facing an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. Human ships fought without regard for conventional tactics. Freighters rammed into enemy vessels. Research ships used their scientific equipment as weapons. A luxury yacht somehow managed to hack into a Devourer command ship and turn its weapons against its own fleet. "This is impossible," Commander Vex said in amazement. "They're coordinating as if they were a single organism." "That's the hatchling," Jake explained, feeling the baby dragon's joy as she facilitated communication between all the human ships. "She's not just connecting them. She's helping them think together, share ideas instantly. Every innovation, every successful tactic gets spread to the entire fleet immediately." The battle turned into something beautiful and terrible. Human ingenuity, amplified by draconic intuition and alien technology, created solutions that should not have existed. When conventional weapons failed, the humans turned asteroids into kinetic bombardment platforms. When shields proved insufficient, They used the hatchling's connection to turn enemy sensors against themselves. But perhaps most importantly, they bought time for Zarathek to say goodbye to her daughter. The ancient dragon's consciousness touched the hatchling one last time, filling her with memories, wisdom, and above all, love. Then, with a final surge of psychic energy that sent ripples across space, Zarathek's life ended. The hatchling's grief echoed through every connected ship. For a moment, the entire human fleet paused, feeling the loss of something irreplaceable. But then, with characteristic resilience, they got back to work. "The Devourers are retreating," reported Captain Chen. "They're not equipped to handle our level of organized chaos." Jake held the grieving hatchling close, feeling her slowly calm as she sensed the love and protection surrounding her from hundreds of human crews. "It's going to be okay, little one. You're not alone." Months later, Jake stood in the workshop he had built aboard the human colony ship New Atlantis. The hatchling, now grown to the size of a large dog and going by the name Nova, watched intently as he worked on integrating human and alien technologies. "Remember, the key is listening to what the machine wants to do," Jake explained, as Nova carefully manipulated quantum circuits with her claws. "Don't force it, guide it." Nova's reply came as a mixture of chirps and electronic tones that somehow conveyed complex engineering concepts. She had become living proof that the boundary between organic and artificial intelligence was more fluid than anyone had imagined. Around them, the ship hummed with hybrid systems that surpassed anything either species could have created alone. Human ingenuity and draconic intuition had merged into something new, something that gave the galaxy hope for the first time in centuries. "Jake," Nova said, her voice now a harmonious blend of biological and electronic tones. "The Devourers are massing again near the Rigel system. The Council is requesting our assistance." Jake smiled and picked up his toolkit. "Well then, we better get going. After all, somebody has to do it." As the New Atlantis changed course toward the new threat, its hybrid crew of humans and dragons prepared for another impossible mission. Behind them, the galaxy was slowly learning that sometimes the best solutions came from the most unlikely partnerships. And somewhere in space, the remnants of the Devourer fleet learned to fear a new sound, the harmonious chorus of human laughter and dragon song, working together to achieve the impossible.